This individual, Layla Bensi, as her name might be, went ahead and was a coworker with me over at ClearLink. Just like the rest of the folks, she worked with the intelligence community, and she was very proud to be a part of a sports team or whatever, metaphors they gave themselves. And what she did is she started stalking me over to NAU. And somebody else that was stalking me is Layla's ex, who also worked with her, and who Layla's ex always spoke very much about her, and very negatively, to be honest. He would call her like a pig-faced whore, and he would mention how ugly she was and how she doesn't look like the celebrity that she thinks she looks like, and she's just an old drinking friend of that circle of folks that I lived with, and that she wasn't actually their friend, and that I shouldn't be involved with her. And so Garrett Myers has also been stalking me, and I have documented that, and I have recorded that in the history. And he stopped wearing his disguise as much. He started wearing his little curly hair Jufro around campus, and he'll stalk me to the gym, and he'll take the machine that I'm currently using and try to spot me. He'll start a volleyball game and try to get me to join it. All sorts of stupid shit like that. And so all of these folks have stalked me over to NAU campus. We're talking the Saif Ulhaq family. The Ulhaq's a retarded general kid who forced me to live with him. The United States Air Force forced me to live with him. I got a short tour with them, and they wouldn't let me live anywhere except with him. So I had to move in with him. My mother was very on board with the idea of me living with him. She was also taking bribes to try to force me to get a security clearance of sorts. And as was, of course, the president and a lot of the other commanders from my former military unit at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Everybody there is buddy. Oh, whoop-de-doo, you're going to become Secret Service. We're all friends here. But little did I know, they all try to screw you over. They all try to coordinate an effort to fuck you over. So back to ClearLink now. You have individuals like Dallin Graff. You have individuals like Anthony Renteria. You have individuals like Jordan Belfort. You have individuals like Justin Main. And what they would do is I would win raffles at the work site, and I would take technology home with me. It would be things like laptops. It would be things like vacuums. And it turns out it would be things like a speaker system. And it turns out they were putting spy equipment in all of these devices. They would put spy equipment in my laptop, and then the next day Justin Main would be making fun of my sex life and the things that I do in my private time on my own technology. And it was really awkward, and it was really uncomfortable. And so these folks were setting up a war game exercise that wasn't actually a war game exercise, because they were sneakily spying on me way ahead of time, trying to gather as much information as they could on me way ahead of time before this supposed military training exercise began, because they wanted to have an edge and they wanted to be able to rob me. And so all of these folks were fixing the boxing match in their own favor so that when the military training exercise came, they would be able to rob me. So much so that they forced me to live with Saif Ulhaq, who at one point of me living with him would point loaded firearms at me, and he would say, you have to let me put you under conservatorship. I'm going to own your entire life. You're going to be my bitch. But I just went ahead and went to the court and got a restraining order instead. And so I think that should tell you a lot about the kind of individuals involved. I did an honorable enlistment. It was a short tour. I moved on with my life. I started working at aerospace companies all over again. I was very successful there. But these folks were coordinating an effort against me. Frank Eckert from the aerospace company that I worked at admitted to me that he runs Kaiser Permanente, a humongous company, a huge healthcare company that is very inclusive. If you have Kaiser Permanente health insurance, you have to go to a Kaiser Permanente hospital to get healthcare there. And so it's a very rounded kind of a healthcare system that you need to be a part of the group in order to receive services from that group at the group rate, and that's kind of the idea there. And the thing is, when I'm over here on campus, suddenly Frank Eckert took off his little old man disguise that he would wear on his face. He would wear disguise. It's like a prosthesis, very realistic silicone latex face mask that would make him look like a wider faced, older grandpa looking fella. Suddenly he takes it off and he looks like, the same fella, just smaller face all of a sudden. And all of his mannerisms are the same. All of his behavior is the same. And he stalks me around NAU campus. Suddenly this guy, this big shot, this guy with really fucking deep pockets that owns these humongous companies, followed me over to NAU, and he's working in the cafeteria as the guy that checks me in and out. And the idea there was he wanted to go ahead and cover up the fact that he has been stalking me and that he intends to rob me of my security clearance compensation. What he's intending to do is gather up evidence ahead of time to claim that, look, he doesn't even recognize me. But the fact of the matter is, I did recognize him. I did recognize his mannerisms. And the person that I recognized was also a person that admitted that one of his daughters was my instructor as my athletic trainer. And what she did is she tried to force relationships with me. She would send me nude photographs. This is my instructor, mind you, at a university, a public university, right? She would send me nude photographs of her and another student in the class, getting jizz shot all over their faces, videos of her jerking somebody off, calling herself a cum slut, videos of her getting jackhammered by some dude and saying, look at this passionate sex, don't you want some? All sorts of shit like that. Now, she was trying to force a relationship with me, and things that she would do when we would speak in private, when I'm trying to get tutoring, when I'm trying to get help with things, is she would set me up for failure by saying, oh, well, such and such exam is going to be open book, blah, blah, blah. And so when I go ahead and take the exam, I'm set up for failure because I don't know that. And she would cause me trouble in those kinds of ways as some sort of retaliation for me turning down her advances and not really paying much attention at all to the nude photographs that she would try to surreptitiously send me. But, I've seen her in and out of her disguises. As an instructor, she wears what it amounts to be a mask, like a full face mask that goes down all the way over her shoulders and shit. Kind of like a condom of sorts, but with holes for her eyes and holes for her nose, and it makes her face look much wider, and it makes her head look much bigger than it realistically is. And she wears plenty of masks. And in fact, at one point when she was walking past me at the east side of that same building that she works in, she timed it just so I was heading to my class and she was walking on the side of that building. She was suddenly wearing a different disguise, but this time she was dressed as an old grandma of sorts. And so she does this to try to cover up her identity and claim that, oh, look, this guy doesn't recognize me when I'm stalking him. This guy doesn't recognize the lady that admitted that her daddy or her, affiliate, her associate owns Kaiser Permanente, and that if I don't date within the group, then I won't be able to be a part of the group. And since I'm being processed for my security clearance, it's kind of a wink and a nod that, oh, if I don't date this person that Frank Eckert tells me to, then I won't necessarily be successful in having a career, or I won't be able to move on to the next step. And these people have been postponing my security clearance for quite some time. And so that's very critical information. And what they do is they postpone the clearance as much as they can, so they can rack up more compensation for damages that are owed to me because of things that they do to me, purposefully and otherwise, because they know that it will rack up more damages. The same way they extend the period of time so that they could rack up more damages and make it a bigger amount of money. And that way they can have a bigger bonus when they finally get to steal it from me. And so all of these folks from the intelligence community in Arizona, all of these folks associated with the Yankee White security clearance, all of these folks associated with the CIA and the FBI and the Secret Service and the President of the United States have been putting forward a very huge effort to try to rob me and absolutely rob me of my security clearance compensation and its damages. And it has been 10 years of them corralling me from one job to the next, 10 years of them forcing me to live in this place and not that place, forcing me to live with Rebecca Bauer, this very same lady that was yelling at me on the side of the road. They forced me to live with her. This is a Jewish-Israeli lady. Obviously, I'm sure, as you might have heard, there's a huge conflict, the Israel-Palestinian war. Everybody's angry at each other. Nobody likes The fact that they're both killing each other, it's not a very happy thing. But people like Israel, from her, for example, are very hateful towards Palestinians, and I experienced that firsthand. As a matter of fact, in the process of them moving me from one place to another and forcing me to live here and forcing me to live there and forcing me to be a part of this landlord's, house group and things like that, they actually gave me a phone call at one point. They're like, guess what? You're our nigger and you're going to do what we tell you to do. And so these folks are very racist, and the military unit that I hail from is very racist. I mean, you have some very graceful people, but you also have a lot of very racist people, and nobody says anything to the racist people, and they're racist to you. I've been called a Nazi simply because of my ethnicity. Nothing that I do is racist towards Jews. I don't hate Jews. I have a lot of Jewish friends. I have a lot of people that I grew up around who are Jewish. But all of a sudden I started getting called a Nazi because somebody got caught wind of the fact that I have Palestinian heritage. Somebody caught wind of the fact that I have some security clearance compensation that's due, and they want a piece of it, and they want to justify their behavior towards me. They want to justify Rebecca Bauer's behavior towards me. They want to justify Ethan Torsini's behavior towards me. And they want to justify Lilia Bernanke's behavior towards me. She was very openly racist. She said a lot of things. And not one person said something to her when she behaved that way. And so that's important for you guys to know. And Rebecca Bauer also happened to work at the military unit when I enlisted. Now, when I worked down at ClearLink, they made it very clear to me that I would not be progressing in life and that I would not be getting a better job, and they would make sure to keep me at really shitty call centers unless I enlisted. And they said, hey, we have this German military unit, we can get you over to Germany, blah, blah, blah. And so at that point, these people were forcing me to live in homes that they flooded with canal water, not joking. And they did all these things to me because they figured, oh, this guy's vulnerable. We think he's autistic. He's perceptively so. And so we think we're going to be able to get this guy that's pure of heart, and we're going to be able to convince him that we're being nice to him and it's all just a game. But at the end of it all, they intend to rob me, and they intend to rob me blind. They intend to rob me completely, and they intend to rob me from something they call a military training exercise, but is actually, in fact, a fixed boxing match. Long before I joined the military, long before the military training exercise, what these folks were doing is setting me up for failure. They would give me jobs only to take that job away all of a sudden over some bullshit excuse. They would give me housing only to flood that housing and put cracks in the walls and put the hinges of the door all of a sudden on the wrong side. You had folks like Willie Tolles pulling up to my house. I would notice him driving off really quick. And so my place was getting broken into by individuals like Daisy, who also worked at ClearLink. And all of these people were very dismissive about how overt they were being about all their actions. So I was just taking note about how these people were treating me, how they were treating me like shit, how they were setting me up for failure. And that was very important for me to do because, as it turns out, later on down the road, part of the security clearance process is something they like to call a military training exercise, where they put you under duress and they treat you like shit and they make your life hell, and you have a bunch of people robbing you and a bunch of people wearing disguises, and it's this whole thing, right? But what these folks have done is they bug my devices long before the military training exercise. They bug my clothing long before the military training exercise. They know my passwords, they know my social security number long before the military training exercise. And this is because they had been spying on me long ahead of time and have been breaking into my home, sending me home with bugged devices, etc., etc. And what was their reward for doing this? What was their reward, for example, the ClearLink folks? What was their reward, Anthony Renteria's reward for firing me without cause? Literally the day he was promoted, as soon as he was sales director, he jumped on the opportunity to fire me, was because he was given an opportunity to start a security clearance investigation company under the name of the Air Force One security clearance investigation group for the Secret Service. And he jumped on that opportunity. He's like, oh, all I have to do is fuck Mo over for you guys and help you guys further your effort of embezzling a shit ton of money through him by using him as some sort of vessel because you perceive him to be special needs, and therefore you will more easily be able to rob him. Okay, I'll do just that. And that's exactly what he did. As soon as he got promoted to sales director, he fired me. And he fired me just days after I let them know that it wasn't acceptable for them to make remarks about my sexuality and whatnot just because they were spying on my devices. And it wasn't okay for them to send me home with devices that they were spying on, especially being that they weren't related to work at all. They were literally raffle prizes, as in gifts of sorts, right? And so, as it turns out, that side of things, the spying, they just have loose lips and they're stupid as fuck. But the spying was done because they wanted to get an edge when the war game exercise was to come, when they would attempt to rob me, when they would attempt to put me under a conservatorship forcibly by ruining my life. They wanted to spy on me through those devices so as to give themselves more information about who I was and whatnot. And as for the immediate firing, Anthony had advance notice that if he was able to make damaging claims about my employability and my capabilities as an employee, what he would then successfully be able to do is what would then happen is he would be given an opportunity to start this Air Force One, quote unquote, security clearance investigation company. And to this day, if you Google his name, Anthony Renteria, you see his ONE group company that he had started and that he heads, which is effectively his little promotion for helping these big shots, these billionaires, these politicians. We're talking presidents, we're talking senators, we're talking representatives. What he effectively did is he furthered their effort of massive embezzlement, and he was rewarded with this incredible job opportunity that is very, very lucrative. And people would knife fight to have that kind of a job opportunity, and he jumped at the opportunity to screw me over. And so a vast majority of these individuals that work with the Angel Stadium, the people that work with Clearlink Scottsdale, the people that work in the Scottsdale Fashion Center, that huge business center down there that Clearlink used to be, is now Indeed, right? All of those folks were incentivized basically to fuck people over in the process of getting them their security clearance, especially if they were isolated and living on their own and they had a really shitty family that very much wasn't a part of their lives, which would be exactly my case. And so they saw this isolated individual. They said, we're going to take advantage of him. And individuals involved in that would be Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is Saif-ul-Haq's sister. You'll see naked photos of her that she was sending me to try to seduce me. Photos of her in my Spanish class wearing her disguise. Her family makes disguises, bodysuits, etc., etc. They own a company that does that. Another person involved would be our president, Joe Biden. He very much is involved. He very much is in cahoots with President Trump in this process. They work together. They even met up together. They even bragged about having each other as guests during my process of getting my security clearance process, during my process of getting the investigation done. And now remember, when I say security clearance investigation, you need to understand that it's very much all said and done and already investigated. What they're waiting on is for an opportunity to put me under some sort of conservatorship or to paint me in some sort of corner where they can claim that I'm incompetent, where they can then put me under a conservatorship, which is a legal guardianship of sorts for adults, right? And then they'll be able to be in charge of my finances and siphon off my finances. How do I know this? Because like a fucking idiot, Saif-ul-Haq, a special needs kid with microcephaly, because his mother's an alcoholic, and he was born with fetal alcohol syndrome and microcephaly. And when you have microcephaly, you have a shrunken skull. When you have a shrunken skull, your brain can't fully develop. When your brain can't fully develop, you're intellectually and cognitively disabled. And so this clinically retarded individual, who is a general, because his parents were literally able to pay his way for that, this clinically retarded individual was able to go ahead and become a general. And this general was in charge of investigating security clearances, and I was made to live with him immediately after my Air Force enlistment was over, my honorable discharge. And this is the kind of individual that is clinically retarded. We're talking pisses in his bed, we're talking shits on the toilet seat, We're talking has mental breakdowns and needs a live-in carer or somebody to be his buddy, and his parents kind of cycle through his friends to try to get something like that going for him. But nobody really lasts living with him because he's just such a gigantic piece of shit and a humongous entitled asshole. And the friendship is like completely one-sided with him. It's like he just wants you to be a slave, right? He'll literally shit on the toilet seat and be frustrated that you won't clean it for him. That kind of a persona. He'll literally use ketchup on the dinner plate and then just put it right back in the cabinet because he doesn't want to clean the dinner plate. He'll literally spill vacuum and then vacuum it and then get mad when the vacuum smells really fucking bad. That's the kind of intellectually disabled we're talking about, right? We're not talking, oh, maybe he stutters, or maybe he has a little bit of ADHD, or maybe he, I don't know, has a little bit of dyslexia. No, we're talking severely disabled individual that was made to be a general because his parents couldn't come to terms with the fact that their son was clinically retarded, and so they just paid his way and made him some sort of big shot of sorts. Now, this individual that I was living with, Saif ul Haq, the general, the guy that's able to fly fighter jets, the guy that's able to pretend to be a police officer, what he did is he went ahead and had a mental breakdown at one point when things weren't going his way, when he wasn't able to get away with treating me like a slave in his own home. I didn't clean his toilet for him, and he snapped and he started yelling at me, and he said, "You own nothing. This is my house. Look around. You own nothing. You are nothing," and he pointed his loaded firearm at me, and he told me all about how he was going to put me under a security clearance, all about how he's in charge of my security clearance. He's going to put me under a conservatorship. He's going to be able to rob me of everything, and I'm going to have nothing. Now, this is an individual who spent his days smoking weed and playing video games all day. Now, somehow this guy was supposed to live with me and manipulate me into putting me into a conservatorship when in reality I was his carer and he was the retard of the situation. Don't ask me how that was supposed to work. I don't know. But the crazy thing is, him and his family would actually take investments from Pakistan. So they would go to Pakistan, they would take investments from foreigners for a Yankee white security clearance, one of the higher security clearances in this country, for folks that are supposed to hang around the president, or for folks that are supposed to hang around, high-tech stuff that is for the government and for the government use only, et cetera, et cetera. One of the highest levels of security clearance. These guys are taking foreign investments to investigate an individual, and they're incentivized to fuck that individual over so they can kick back money overseas. So you can see why that's a huge conflict of interest. You can see why these individuals who are incentivized to make money for a foreign nation while processing the United States' security clearances, you can see why that might be a humongous conflict of interest and a threat to our national security. Who's aware of this? All of the people involved. We're talking presidents, we're talking senators, we're talking representatives. All of these people are aware of how deep this corruption is. Let's be honest, they're literally enslaving me for 10 years of my life, postponing how long it's going to take for me to get my security clearance, because they very much so intended to enslave me and rob me. So people that are willing to stoop that low aren't really going to have the kind of character where they give a shit about national security. Now, other investments that these folks are taking, individuals like Saif Abdullah, who is the boss of Saif ul Haq in the Navy generalship that they have. These guys were naval generals and admirals, basically. And this guy was taking investments from Palestine and Iraq to process United States Yankee white security clearances. Security clearances where individuals work with very sensitive information that pertains to national security. And so you might see why that might be an issue, that people are taking investments and expecting kickbacks from individuals that are investigating security clearances that have to do with the highest levels of government and the highest regards of national security. Naturally, I found that to be an issue. And what's even worse is that these people were just robbing the people from overseas. They were robbing the locals too. Anybody that would invest in them, they were basically being robbed. I mean, these folks have private airstrips. These people have private jets, private airplanes. They indulge in the biggest luxuries. They have car collections. They have houses in different cities all over the country, etc., etc. So these people are very wealthy. They're swimming in wealth, but it gets worse, right? I'm not saying that these folks, run a huge investment company and they're very rich and therefore they're wrong. No. What I'm telling you is I got a restraining order against Saif Haq where I wrote an affidavit to the judge. I said, this is why I'm getting a restraining order. Not only did this guy point a loaded firearm at me, but this guy let me know that he was going to rob me of my security clearance compensation and attempt to force me into a conservatorship so that he can more easily rob me of my finances and so that he could siphon off my security clearance damages compensation as soon as he was able to adjudicate it. As soon as he was able to put me under a conservatorship, he would adjudicate the security clearance, effectively grant it, right? Because they're just postponing. They know that I'm not a danger. They know that I'm safe and I am who I say I am, blah, blah, blah. So I already had an affidavit with the court. So these guys had no way to force that kind of an effort on me. These guys have no way to force me into some sort of marriage. So instead what they started to do is anesthetize me in my sleep and force their wives and their sisters and their mothers to fuck me and rape me. And that way they could claim, Mo is in a relationship with my wife, therefore my wife is owed financial compensation for the sexual interactions that they have had. And these people would use weapon systems that they import from Iran and whatnot to conduct these kinds of behaviors. And I think that's really important for people to know. So not only are foreign nations that we are not exactly on great terms with involved in investing in getting kickbacks from the security clearance investigations, but these foreign nations, these individuals that are investing in these fellas are effectively being robbed because these guys know that their investment is going to shit. These guys know that they have nothing working out for them as far as the effort of forcing me into some sort of conservatorship. That's it. Cat's out of the bag. I already told the judge what they're trying to do. I already told the judge who's trying to do it. I already told these folks, and I've made tons of blog posts. I've given out notebooks with written words about all these shit that these people are doing. And so I have this data logged away, waiting for the moment that they try to pounce on me and tear the information away and try to cover it all up, which they've done. I'm remaking this video because they forcibly deleted it from my phone. They don't want folks to know that Anthony Renteria was completely bought out. He was promoted to sales director so he could fire me because they got caught sexually harassing me and sexually assaulting me in the workplace by sending me home with a gift and spying on me, right? And so their plan was, look, we'll go ahead and promote you if you help us cover this up. And when you get that promotion, you'll be able to start your security clearance investigation company for the CIA and the Secret Service and the president himself. And all you have to do is fuck this guy over because we're in trouble right now. We're in hot water. We're in the Angels Stadium. We're supposed to be these big sports stars. We're supposed to be these elite spies. And we just got caught being really shitty to this guy for no fucking reason. And so they tried to do a little bit of administrative judo to try to not only cover up their sexual harassment and their sexual assault, but also to try to paint me as the bad guy, to try to paint me as insubordinate. You know why I was painted as insubordinate? I got out of my chair to congratulate Anthony on his promotion. I literally got out of my chair during a very slow time when we weren't getting phone calls, and I went and I congratulated him. I said, hey, I heard you got that promotion, congratulations. And that's it. It was a short conversation. I was just going back to my chair. Tons of other people got up to talk to him and say the same thing. You know what he did? He pulled me aside. He said, you shouldn't have gotten out of that chair. Talked to me at the end of the day. I talked to him at the end of the day. Justin Maine is sitting there with him, the guy that was spying on me and sexually harassing me and sexually assaulting me. And they fired me. And for the reasoning, they wrote down insubordination. And so I think that tells you a lot about these folks. I think it tells you a lot about their higher-ups too. And we're talking all the way up the chain, all right? All the way up the chain of command. It's not just them. It's not just their bosses. It's just not just their boss's boss. We're talking all the way up the chain of command. Joe Biden and Donald Trump were bragging about being buddy-buddy and visiting each other. And now Joe Biden is trying to put a fun twist on it. And he's like, well, I'm Dark Brandon. I'm just visiting. I'm just testing the waters. I just want to see what it's like. And so he's engaging in this massive cover-up immediately after I made that video, and immediately after that video got deleted from my phone, because he knows he's in hot water. He knows that he engaged in criminal conspiracy. He knows that he was trying to enslave the Palestinian kid that his family was very racist against. His family are Jewish folks and folks that I know and have known for quite some time. And they were very racist to me in the military unit and after I even left the military unit because I wasn't Israeli, because I was Palestinian. And they said all sorts of awful things to me. They called me a Nazi. They called me a nigger. They called me a cockroach, all because of my Palestinian heritage. And so now all of a sudden this guy's trying to play it smooth and pretend, oh, haha, gotcha. You've been my buddy all along. I haven't been enslaving you for 10 years. But the facts are quite to the contrary. And there isn't really an easy way out for him, because everybody at NAU is hearing all about this in real time. And so not only am I going to post this video, but everybody already has heard this earlier today, and they're hearing it again. And they get to hear about how the president tried to cover it up, how he tried to play it smooth, and how he even erased the video from my data recovery tool. And that kind of information is very important for a jury to hear, because these guys are absolutely abusing their military weapon systems. These guys would literally control me to try to get me to get with their daughters using classified military weapon systems. And, Saif Abdullah specifically controlled me at a Target so that he could try to get me to date his sister-in-law because he knew that he absolutely lost this security clearance damages theft. He knew that he was absolutely in hot water for robbing all of these people, both foreign and domestic, for a very high level national security clearance, that he should not have been taking investments into, to effectively be corrupt, because his national allegiances are not exactly what you would hope that somebody that represents the United States when doing security clearance investigations, his allegiances are not where you might hope they would be. He's just some billionaire kid that bought out his position, just like his retarded little buddy Saif ul-Haq, who has microcephaly and is clinically retarded. And so that tells you a lot of what you need to know. Now, all of these folks, we're talking Saif Abdullah, we're talking Saif ul-Haq, we're talking Saif ul-Haq's mother, we're talking Saif ul-Haq's sister, and we're talking Saif ul-Haq's fiance/wife/baby mama. All of these folks are sending me nude photographs. They're trying to get with me. They interfere with my daily life here on NAU campus. General Taki down at Heroes Sushi and his husband invited me into their home after they drugged me for an interrogation. And so I was not about my wits, but they just forced me around and walked me around. And they let me know, like, hey, we've won billions of dollars by robbing people of their security clearance compensations before. So they're bragging to me about how wealthy they are and stuff. And he's like, yeah, like 3 point something billion is the most I've ever made. And so, it's a no-brainer that I would try to sabotage you. And so when I worked for that guy, he tried to sabotage me here in Flagstaff. Like I said, that Layla chick from Clearlink Scottsdale also followed me up here.